Welcome back to Radio Nation. It's your host, Nicholas Pescod here. Very, very pleased to be they're nominated for the Michael Monty Award, which is very, very honored. I'm very honored to have received it, or be nominated for it, excuse me. As some of you may know, I've been doing this program, excuse me, for about 2.5 years now. I started this in November of 2010, and the show has changed millions since I started it, and it's been an honor and a privilege to have worked with some of the people that have helped out, including Elon Lee, who was listening tonight, and he has been with me almost since day one, and I would almost say since the second episode, maybe even the first episode, but he's been here since day one helping out, and he's the reason that you can hear this program tonight and hear my voice. So man, as much as this award is nominated for me, it is more for the show and for everybody who's helped out. And I'm getting a little emotional just talking about it, because it is pretty nice to be recognized by your peers just for even doing something. You know, I don't do this for recognition. I don't do it for anything but love. I just love doing this, and it's something that, you know, I want to keep doing and keep growing and hopefully, you know, turn into something where I can make a living off of it, just because I love doing it. And we unfortunately need money to survive in this world. That's the reality of it. If I was a multimillionaire's son who had nothing better to do with his time, I would probably just do this for the rest of my life. But that's not the way it works, and that's not the way it's worked out for me, and that's perfectly okay by me. The reason I also bring up this award nomination is it's really become something that's sort of coming full circle. I started this program in 2010, and I started it at a time in my life where I was going through literally living hell. And because today is Bell Let's Talk Day in Canada, and it's a great cause that if you write on your tweets and you hashtag Bell Let's Talk until I'm going to assume 3 a.m. Eastern or 3 a.m. Eastern time tonight, because it ends in BC at, I guess, midnight. They will donate 5 cents for every tweet that has that in there, and they've gone through and apparently over 50 million tweets and text messages from Bell providers. Bell is a cell phone company for many of you American listeners that are listening. Bell is a cell phone provider and cable service company here in Canada. I would assume named after Alexander Graham Bell, the inventor of the phone communication device. So it makes sort of fitting sense, because Mr. Bell was Canadian. At least that's what I was told anyway. He could have been American, but I was told he was Canadian. Anyway, getting back to the point here, they talk a lot about their initiative today is to raise awareness of mental health. And so I'm going to talk for the next 10 minutes or so about what I went through. And I'll start off by saying that I went through anxiety, and I'm actually having it right now, which is really funny. It's like good and bad anxiety, but it's funny that I bring it up. So I was going through a period of time right before I started Radio Nation in October of 2010, and I'd experienced this problem, I guess, since about April. There was so I guess I should probably start from April, because that seems to be the best place to start. So I was going through a tough time. I'd been dating a girl who is a very wonderful and awesome person, and we are still friends today, but things weren't going well in our relationship, and one day I woke up, and something snapped in my head. I just remember waking up one day, and I felt like I had died overnight and come back and been a different person, and it was the weirdest feeling, and it's the first time that I ever literally had a mental breakdown in my life. I just started crying. Like, I woke up and I just started crying, and before that had happened, I had been such a very happy-go-lucky person. I'd never really been through depression. I didn't even know what anxiety was at this point. I still didn't know it when I had this breakdown. I had no idea what it was. It was just school and stress, and the end of the year, it was April, and I was going through a bit of a tough time in my relationship, which had really just started. But some things happened which are not to be talked about on air. But some things were going on, and it was just a very difficult time. And I guess all the stuff I had gone through in years past had just sort of piled up. And so I woke up one day, and I like I said, I just started crying, and it was awful. And thankfully, the next week it happened, and I went to work, and everything was fine. But then the next week, everything changed in my life, and things got worse. And I started shaking, and I started feeling like I was having all kinds of mental breakdowns, and I thought I was going to die, and just all these weird things were happening. And I can remember being at work, and this is going to sound really stupid, but I totally thought that I had I was having an aneurysm, and medically you can't even really know if you're going to have a brain aneurysm, and it's something that my grandmother passed of when she was not young, but I never met her, but she wasn't old, let's put it that way. And so I just had this, I was standing at work, and I had just been having this horrible thought, and I remember going to the bathroom, and I just couldn't stop crying, and I quit work that day. Work was really stressful too. I believe it or not, I worked at a dollar store, and there was a lot of stuff going on, and a lot of really just weird, typical work drama, and it was just ridiculous, and I was sadly caught up in the middle of it. I wanted no part of it. I can remember going to work for months before, and I would shake, just like I thought I was, I thought I was shaking, and I would just drink Gatorade and I'd be fine. And I guess it just got to the point where I guess my body was telling me that something was wrong, and sure enough, from April onwards into May, it just got progressively worse, and I started having panic attacks. I ended up going to the hospital multiple times. I can remember going to the hospital, and I can just remember them saying, I swear I thought I was having like a heart attack. Like my heart was racing. And I can remember being in triage, and the woman puts the thing on my arm, and she's like, "Your heart is fine." And I'm looking at her, I'm like, "Are you crazy, woman? Like, what do you know? Like, are you serious? Like, I feel like I'm gonna die right now. This is insane." And that wasn't the case at all. And yeah, so that was the beginning of anxiety, and it got worse. It got worse, and by July and August, I straight up want to tell you, I thought about suicide almost every day. There were so many days where I just could not take getting up and crying for no reason. I would cry in the shower for no reason. I would cry everywhere. Like there were things that I couldn't control that were just so bad. And some of you that are listening, and I'm not very public about this, but I do have ADD, and I have suffered that since I was about 8. And it's not something that I say suffer, because I've really just dealt with it, and it's never really been an issue, but I was going through some changes in my medication, and so we didn't know what it was, and I was seeing a doctor about it, and things just got really, really, really bad, and I was in a bad place. I didn't have. I worked at a warehouse, and I worked alone, and it was living hell. I barely functioned at my job. Started putting on weight. I started just not taking care of myself, I guess. I didn't know what was happening. I thought I was dying. And I wanted to die. There was so many days where I woke up and I just wanted to kill myself, because I wasn't happy anymore. I could not stand knowing that if I didn't have a panic attack for an hour, I was going to have one the next hour. And I could just almost predict when they were going to happen. And it was horrible. It was the most horrific thing I have ever been through in my whole life. It was scary. And I feel bad for my parents, because they had to watch me go through it, and there was nothing they could do. My parents were very helpful. They've always been very, very understanding people of my ADD and everything, and they're the only two people in the world who have never had ADD who truly understand it better than psychiatrists that do have it, and that blows me away. That's how amazing my parents are. So with that being said, my mom could do nothing, and she's upset about it, and my dad's doing his best to stay positive, and dad's a very positive person to begin with, so he's helping me through it, and there was nothing I either could do. Like, it got to the point where I started worrying that I was going to see things and become schizophrenic. They told me they thought I was going to become schizophrenic. They didn't know. I'm adopted, so I don't know my medical history, because I'm adopted from Romania, and there is none of that stuff over there. So no one knew anything, and it was very, very scary. I used to worry that I would see this person in orange waving at me, and it was the weirdest thing. Like, I couldn't look at the sky without getting that thought, and not seeing it, but just visualizing that it was there. It's so hard to explain, but just all these things were happening, and it was a lot to deal with, and thankfully it was over the summer, because had it been during school, I don't know if I would have been able to function. But one of the things that I do know is that being social has always been something that has taken away my problems, or really just helped mask them, I guess you could say. Is I would go to school and everything would go away, because all through grade school, all through high school, anything that I ever dealt with just went away, because I was around people and I was distracted and I was having fun. Whether I didn't like the courses or not was a different story, but I was around people that I liked to be around, and I was having fun. And at this point in my life, I was in second year of college, I guess you could say, and it was tough. It was just very, very tough. and I was living in Oakville, and I was living at home. I didn't have a lot of friends around that were in the area. A lot of them were off doing different things, and so it was just really hard for me to deal with everything. And eventually, this leads me to Radio Nation, because in September, I had worried that I was going to kill myself. And that's the other thing too, is although as much as I wanted to kill myself, I was afraid of dying, and I was afraid of the thought of it being painful, so I just couldn't do it. And it was really weird. And I'm glad I didn't. There was one night I went down to the water by the lake in Lake Ontario in Oakville, and I watched the moon sit on hit the water, and it's one of the most beautiful things to me. So I love doing that, and I've done it many, many times. And it was that moment where I was like, I don't really want to do this, but every day was a struggle for a very long time. And then when school came around, I got busy and distracted. And then I started Radio Nation, and it took me a little while to get this show going and up. I remember the first time I came in the studio, there was no one here. It was weird. I could not imagine talking into a microphone with no one around me. I was like, this is so weird. Why would anybody do this? And so then, I started doing it, and it really it took my mind off everything. And so I'd been getting better at this point. I started taking some medication, and I started making adjustments in my life. I started, watching how much I slept, and I wasn't getting enough sleep earlier, so I started, making sure I got 8 hours of sleep. I started eating properly. I started going to the gym, although that was the most challenging part, was going to the gym, because I get a lot of anxiety, and even working out would cause me anxiety for some reason, so it was very difficult to overcome that one. And I just made sure I was doing things that was keeping my mind active, and I tried to read books. I'd read the wrong books, apparently, because I couldn't read anything violent, or I'd get very, very upset and disturbed. And so here I am in the studio, and I'm talking about things I love, and eventually I said to my mom one day after she picked me up from this train station after I finished the show, and I just said, I got to keep doing this, because this is my chance to do something. It's really fun. And from that moment on, I've been doing it ever since, and it's literally one of the things that has saved my life. I would accredit it to saving my life, because I have focused all that negative energy and tried very hard to turn it into something that is positive. And I guess for me, we all need someone to look up to when we're going through tough times. At least I think we do anyway. And for me, it was weird, because I didn't really know anybody who had gone through this before. My girlfriend at the time, who I would later break up with over the course of the summer and into the fall, but she had gone through, but it was entirely different. I needed somebody who was like a celebrity, and I started looking around, and I'm very into baseball, and there's a few baseball players, including Canadian Joey Votto, who took a year off of baseball, more or less, because of anxiety. And he came back and won MVP the year after he came back. And so I looked at him and I thought, if he can do that and play a professional sport and play at the highest level and be nominated for something and be recognized for his achievements, I figured, I can do it too. And so very early on in the show, I've been very active in supporting mental health. I've kind of gotten away from it in the last little while, but I'm very, very supportive of it, because any mental health promotion and research is truly an honor. And so today is a pretty cool day that Bell Let's Talk is talking about it, and that's why I am here telling you this story. If you're listening and you're ever depressed and you want to talk, I am more than happy to talk to you, even if I'm at work, if I'm doing whatever. If I can talk to you, I would be more than happy to. You can add me on Skype at NPESCOD, and I'll be more than happy to talk to you. It's been something that has forever changed my life. And I still go through it sometimes. I've gone through bits of depression, and I've learned what works and what doesn't work. And I'm trying very hard not to get emotional right now, because it's pretty tough to talk about some of the dark pasts. And there's a period where I just didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to tell any of my friends. I couldn't even have people come around me that I knew very well, because I didn't want them to see me like this, because I was a wreck. I was just a complete mess. And It's been an honor, and it is very much an honor to be nominated for the Michael Monty Award, which is given out by the Ontario Association of Broadcasters. It is I'm very honored to be nominated for it, because it just takes me to think of Joey Votto and what he was able to do after his bout with anxiety, and to come back and be recognized by his peers. So it's very, very It's I'm very honored, and it's a privilege to have every one of you listening tonight. And for all those who have ever listened in the past, it's truly an honor to have you been able to give your time for me, even if it's for 30 seconds, even if it's just for an interview, even if it's just for 10 minutes. It's an honor, because I do this because I love it. I don't do it because I make money. We don't make money here. It'd be nice, but we don't. And I chose to stay here. My parents live 2,000 miles away from me, and I love my parents more than anything in the world. And I chose to stay here because I wanted to broadcast from the studio, and I wanted to do this. That's how much I love this. And it was one of the hardest decisions of my life, but I feel like it was the right one. It was a lot of struggle. I went through heck last year, through the end of the year. I went through depression. I couldn't find a job. I was working at a job and I wasn't getting paid. Got laid off, sort of. I quit. Couldn't find a job. Worked in a kitchen, which was completely depressing, but it was better than nothing. Just to survive, just to get by and pay the rent. And it was tough. And I'm very happy that I have a great job, which I will talk about in the next little segment. And I'm very, very, very privileged, because although what I've gone through is living hell, there are a lot more people out there who are going through worse. And sometimes I don't think about that myself. Like, you hear people that say, oh, I think of it all the time. And I'm going to straight up admit I don't think like that all the time. And it's bad. I just don't. I'm sometimes a negative person, and it's not a good thing. It's something I'm trying to change and work on as a human being. We all have stuff we want to work on, but that's just one of the things. And there's a lot of other people out there that are going through hell. And what CAMH does, the Center for Addiction and Mental Health here in Toronto and Canada, they are outstanding individuals, and I'd love to partner with them as a charity, because they do great work. So with that, I'm going to lead it off into the next segment of songs, which will be the Boyle Brothers, Jessica Speziali, Halfway to Hollywood, and some other great stuff. So yes, everybody, I encourage you to tweet the hashtag Let's Talk, Bell Let's Talk. I encourage all of you to tweet it tonight, because it is for a great cause, and I am 100% behind them. I just think it's a great thing. So I thank you, everybody, for listening, and I hope you enjoy the music, and I hope you continue to keep listening, because you guys are the reason I still do this. And without you guys, this wouldn't be a program. So thank you, everybody, for listening.